At KSMO Radio, we welcome you to our Thursday morning. It is February 22nd. It is the real George Washington's birthday, not that artificial one on Monday.
Little touch of trivia.
I got irritated. A guy on Missouri Net said, it's George Washington's birthday. I said, not even close, dude. It's called President's Day, not George Washington's birthday. Get it right. Anyway, but there's probably, and then I started to realize, Jason, probably a lot of people here, youngins especially, I would have to think more youngins than anybody else, that don't know what Washington's birthday is.
Right.
Because they never have celebrated Washington's birthday itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know how they change this with the educational system. You know, they change a lot of things, and what goes and what gets educated to our kids.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent.
Right, yeah. We used to have Lincoln's birthday on the 12th and George's on the 22nd. Yeah. Of course, we never got Lincoln's birthday off when I was a kid. Yeah. We got Washington's birthday off no matter what day it was. But if it fell on a weekend,
oh, sure.
You're out of luck, dude. You didn't get that day off. Anyway, well, we're not here to do that kind of justification and stuff. We are here to talk a little bit about the hospital. Obviously, we know the hospital is still in a transition. We're not going to hide anything about it. It did get its audit report. This is a long audit report. People say, well, the audit report is going to come out and get things, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because this is just a draft audit report.
Right,
so
correct.
Anyway, it still can be changed and adjusted still as yet. You knew, hospital board knew, that it was not going to be a pretty report because it still was the time that RHG was still running the hospital.
Correct.
All the way up to June 30th of 2023. It seems like so long ago. And when you look at a time frame now, we're getting closer to the next audit program.
Yeah, we're halfway through already.
Yeah, more than halfway through. Usually you get this audit somewhere around October or November.
Right.
And here we are in February getting it. But they had to do some little extra work, had to do some preliminary work first and then come back. And so anyway, nonetheless, there was some losses for the hospital. I'm not going to hide it from anybody.
And year after year, I mean, we have had losses year after year, but this last fiscal year was a pretty substantial loss compared to the years prior.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, it's all in the midst of this transition.
Sure.
And it's going from RHG when they kind of abandoned ship, when they gave their letter of intent not to continue. Yep. And then the hospital had to kind of, I almost had to say you had to go to fourth down and punt because you do. You have to kind of reestablish things. You got to kind of reset things. And so there's a transitional period there that doesn't happen in a month.
Right. So, and all these numbers from the audits, like you said, was the last fiscal year. It ended in June 30th of 23. So these were all the numbers prior. And, it's like you said, we were rushing around and trying because there was not a whole lot of stuff completed with the audit, if any.
Yeah.
So we had to actually hire a consultant to help us get prepared for the audit, cost report. A lot of things were not prepared. So we had to rush to get it done.
And in all honesty, Jason, the budget that was prepared for the upcoming fiscal year was about as basic and generic and useless as a $3 bill.
Yeah. So basically what the board was presented when it comes to the operational budget was a sheet of paper saying this is what our projections are going to be. And
let's break it down. Let's explain a little bit to the budget. The hospital budget usually is like 45, 50 pages long.
Yeah.
Every individual thing is listed out.
Every department, everything has to be input into our EMR, our system CPSI, and, none of that information we could find. So all we got was this one sheet that says, okay, we're going to increase revenues this many percent, and it was somewhat, I know it is an educated guess. Any kind of a budget is going to be a guess based on trends and market trends.
And history.
Yep, and history. So you go on those projections, and now we had to completely build the rest of the budget, or our CFO, Doug Holman, had to build the rest of the budget to meet what was presented to the board.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't know where they pulled those numbers from.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, where we get these increase in volumes that you're saying we're going to get, where are they coming from?
Sure.
And Doug, find them. It sounds simplistic in nature because it is a budget, but the budget is supposed to reflect a realistic view of what do you expect the hospital to have in that upcoming year.
Exactly. You look at market trends year after year, and your projections. It's a serious thing, because you want to be in line with your budget. But it was a little bit. I mean, with the pre-audit report, with a loss of $2.5 million originally,
Sure.
It did decrease slightly. So, but the board had already had the understanding that we had a significant loss.
All right, so this audit report came out, and I'm sure people are going to hear about it, that the auditors, they have to make these opinions and guesses based upon the information presented. So, yeah, they don't always paint a rosy picture. However, here we are 8 months into the new year. Mm-hmm. And when people start seeing that, okay, yeah, if you were continue to have operating losses and you're going to continue to have patients go down, things of that nature, yes, you would be in a whole bunch of trouble. But actually, the cash on hand has started to climb again. Correct. In the last 7 months.
Correct.
It took actually had kind of a little decrease down there in November when the hospital had to pay a whole bunch of bills.
Right. And
you got down to some pretty tight times. But since then, though, the hospital cash on hand has gone up. As a matter of fact, this last month he had a positive increase in cash of $125,000.
Right.
So, there's good positive things showing up. Now, somebody looks at that audit report, they say, well, yeah, but they're worried about you making another year. That's what they have to say.
Sure.
Because that's what those numbers from the previous year said. And that's why sometimes I think when you don't get those accounting numbers in a timely fashion, and this is not timely. This audit is not what I call realistic and timely because it's almost March.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what happens when
you're in your last quarter of your next fiscal year.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So whenever you're already behind the 8 ball because you're having to get all the information for the auditor so they can prepare the audit report.
Sure.
You're already 6 months into the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
So we kind of already had an understanding that there's going to be losses, so we had to make changes and different kinds of operational cuts, and we have made some of those decisions, and they have helped, improved in collections with our revenue cycle. We are seeing some good trends.
Mm-hmm.
Are we out of the water? Absolutely not.
No.
It's
going to take a lot more than 6 months.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and we're going to have to work together as a team, as a community, to focus on the hospital and take care of it.
All right. So, putting all that aside, so we know the hospital has I just don't say about the last tough 4 years.
Yeah.
Because when COVID hit, that really just everything went chaotic, and then of course the lab issues, and then that has now been all finally had put aside, put to rest. Okay. Now's the time to see what the hospital can do. Now, unfortunately, you're coming into the time when normally the hospital busiest time is during the winter months.
Sure.
But you still have a couple of months here that we can start to see those trends and see where they're going. Like I mentioned, the last couple of months, the trends have started to move up toward increase in cash. So let's start reviewing the current statement and talk a little bit about what happened at the board in the last month. Number one, CLIA came in, and the lab is good to go.
Good to go. Good to go. They came in they accepted our plan of correction. We still had a large plan of correction, but look, I want you to understand that this was from previous things going on with the lab that they stick with you. Mm-hmm. So if they come back and re-inspect, they're going to re-inspect the same things that had happened prior. So you almost have to wait until you get through these couple years past the CLIA inspections, and then they can come off your books per se.
Yeah.
Our new lab director, Melissa, and her team are doing an outstanding job. Their current processes are great. CLIA's in very good position. They did the reinspection. They were tickled. Best way to say it.
Mm-hmm.
They were saying Melissa has everything under control. We like her processes. They actually made the statement, we have no problem bringing our families here to have our lab work done whatsoever. So seems like we're in pretty good shape.
Now, that doesn't mean that, okay, because that's all done, and we had a little conversation yesterday, it's easy for CLIA to come in and strip you of things, but it's really hard to get them reestablished.
Exactly.
So after the blow that the lab took, it may take another year or two to get everything back to where it used to be
Right.
before the problem.
Yeah, and they have really all the control when it comes to that, because you have to, they say what you need in order to bring those things back. So if it's staffing, you have to have your staff. You can't do agency staff, because those people need to be competent and trained and know they've been there for a year, can fully do the job. So it may be, like you said, a couple years out before we even try or see these other services that we may have had before. And it's not necessarily CLIA. You may have a federal inspection to go along with that.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a challenge, but we're going to look forward for the future.
All right, very good. So let's move forward from that. So that's good news. Also, the torch funds have been received, and you want to tell a little bit about that?
Yep, we have received the torch fund and those were for members like our population health members, for a position basically, so that we can monitor and do the torch program. We get these funds for the next several years, so that's a good thing for the hospital. I think it's been a great opportunity to develop and implement community-level population health strategy, and be able to work with our hospital and our local partners together to be able to take care of our people.
Very good,
and our
very good.
community.
340B optimization. Now, this just a brand new optimization has just gone into effect.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
So you don't really have much results out of this yet at all.
Not yet. Our consultant, Jeremiah McWilliams, is actually working on carving out scripts. That's, our hospital patients. So we'll hopefully see more about that. We're getting some good reports, but we haven't seen those dollars actually benefits yet.
All right. And Delta Region, that's an ongoing grant, and that's still being worked on. There's some things going on there.
Yep, with our Charge Master update. We've had over years and years, we've seen issues with our Charge Master. This is basically what charges go into our system. So we got to make sure those are up with the times, with what we need to be charging. So we're going to have that assessed, and Delta is going to assist us with that.
All right, very good. All right, so really quickly, we're just going to run through some of the operations. Obviously, we saw inpatient admissions a bit above last year, below budget, but I don't put a lot of credibility into those budget numbers, and we already mentioned what kind of happened. They were kind of skewed to begin with. So if we look at last year, you're over on the inpatient admissions side, maybe a little bit less on the inpatient census days side, but a lot of that was on the med surge. Not as much med surge. When you don't have that, you can't show those figures. But swing bed was down just a little. Observation was up some. But really, when you overall look at that, it's down a little bit. Not out of the norm.
Right.
Too far.
Right.
A little bit below last year. But last year, if everybody remembers, was a very, very bad year for sickness. There was a lot of flu. There was COVID kind of popped back out, and it got nasty.
Yeah, and if you notice, a lot of our isolation numbers, and then when you think isolation, you think COVID flus, things like that. You could have other things for isolation, but those were down significantly as well. So that tells you those things were not as much hospitalized.
Right. And when you look at outpatient registrations compared to last year, 7 different. Total of 7 different, so not much difference there. You had cardiopulmonary lab tests, everything as normal. 25 surge last year, 28. So you're right on the norm for where you should be. And of course, we all know that home health has been discontinued by the hospital. So those numbers that we used to give there no longer will be. And we had long-term care was full.
Yep.
ER down just a little bit, but as we mentioned, I don't think it was we had some pretty nice days.
Yeah.
In the month of January, which normally, we had some cold ones. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, sure.
Really bitterly cold, but we had some pretty nice days. So we didn't have as much going on there as the ED, and a lot of people were using the clinic as well, which we appreciate that.
Anytime you can use the clinic and see your provider, and with and I say an uptick of maybe in getting immunizations, maybe help significantly, and it keeps you out of the ER. Maybe you can be able to go see your provider.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're a lot quicker to turn around too.
Sure.
So if you need to get that done, of course, ER visits. If you need the ER, it's there, and
Absolutely.
that's why you have it there. Ambulance runs continue to be at about 40%. You still get a whole bunch of transfers in. But patients brought in. But there's many times patients, the ambulance response to the accident maybe somebody's hurt. Maybe they're not hurt. Maybe it looks really bad and they get there and they find it, they walk away.
Yep. And that's where your dry runs come in.
That's where the dry runs start adding up, too.
Yep.
Really can do that quickly. All right, very good. So lab's been busy even before the CLIA total inspection, so very, very good numbers there.
Yep.
Moving forward.
Seeing some improvement.
Yes, very good. As we look at the balance sheet and things of that nature, they have stabilized, and I guess that's the best term you can probably use. They have stabilized or starting to try and recover.
Right.
Got some sales tax monies that came in. Sales tax money. Got some property tax money that came in from the county. That always helps. But the operations funds that have kept coming in and the collections are up.
Yep. As long as we need to keep focusing on our collections, make sure that we're capturing what we need, any write-offs, denials, or anything that we need to be that weren't being focused on before. We need to make sure that we're working those problems.
So a couple of things that on the balance sheet. One of the things that was brought out in the audit, because the bonds have not been paid for the way that they were initially set up to be paid, they have been moved to a short-term liability. Not that it's a big deal. It's a balance sheet switch, but until that can be clarified, and then it had to be moved to a short-term obligation. But besides that, not too bad of statements. We mentioned there was a loss from operations, but with the tax money, et cetera, there's an excess of revenues over expenses. And Jason, it's turning around.
Yep. We want to keep moving forward, do those any little steps that we can do to keep, any losses to minimal and move forward. That's what we have to do.
Very good. So as we take a look at the cash flow statement in December, and the cash flow statement's actually for the last few months, not just December. I shouldn't say that. We do see that we have a surplus in cash. It's nice to have that.
Yep.
For a change, after especially the struggles. But when you go up $125,000 in January, somebody said, well, that's all just property tax money. No, that's not. That's also collections. And if we had a chance to talk yesterday, Jason, what the hospital bills out, it may take 70 to 140 days for that money to come into the hospital. Or longer.
Or longer.
Or longer. And that's what people don't seem to understand. I just got my bill when I went to the hospital back in November. I just got the statement for Medicare.
Yep.
I just got the statement that said, do I have a question on this bill?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was November. We're now in February. That's 3 months later that I get the statement, and they haven't reimbursed you yet. They're asking me if I've got questions on the bill.
It's a very intricate, if I can say that word.
Intricate?
Intricate process when it comes to revenue cycles. So many processes, and whenever you need a very well-rounded team. We got a new our interim revenue cycle director that he's really stepping in and going to work, and he's fairly new in the position, but there's so much to learn, and there's so many when you're learning the processes. So I think we're starting to see some improvement there. We want to continue to grow and build that department and continue to work on the collections and work the problem.
And as we mentioned, we talked yesterday, it's just following up on it, because if you stop asking, they're not going to pay.
Sure. Absolutely.
And so you got to continue to follow up and follow up and follow up. And if anybody would ever think how many different accounts that have to be followed up on, from insurance companies that don't want to pay, from Medicare, Medicaid, all these different thousands.
And if you have one keystroke wrong,
throw it back.
It goes back.
Yeah.
Yep.
So good to see that increase in cash. That's always good. 26 days cash on hand, which is not terrible.
Yeah. Coming from an improvement from December, we had to report 17 days cash on hand. And that, like we said, that was a lot of accounts payable, a lot of invoices we paid out, outstanding that we're not input into our system. So we had a lot of fixes to make.
All right. So we report the clinic had showed a loss, and they've been showing a profit. Of course, that's devoid of the benefits that they get that are part of their hospital contract. But still, when they were showing a positive number coming out of the clinic, unfortunately, there was a lot of adjustments made. I was looking at the statement, I'm like, wow, adjustment.
Yeah.
When they have to make all those, you're probably not going to come out ahead, and that's the case for the hospital.
Sure. And there's a lot of indirect costs. You don't see the benefits.
Exactly.
They have an employee.
Right.
Right.
And then the 340B pharmacy revenue, well, they hadn't had an audit on the drugs for quite.
Yeah, and that was from our TPA, our third party. And they hadn't deducted those medications then we've known them forever that
Mm-hmm.
we've heard about. So hence they did, and they went all the way back from 21, I believe, on some of the medications. So
Wow.
we got a little jolt there. We're having to look a little bit more into that and get some more information.
One thing, Jason, people need to understand, though, the lab has to have the medicines and things of that nature, but there's times that those medicines have a end useful date.
Oh, sure.
That the hospital has to pay for these, and then when they come to that natural end, they have to be destroyed.
Yeah.
You get nothing back on that.
Oh, no. Yep, it's all expensed out. Yep, that's all our cost.
Kind of just like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens that way.
Such is life.
It
sometimes.
is. It is. Still need some nurses. If people be interested, you still need some nighttime nurses,
Oh, yeah.
especially, right?
Oh yeah, the night shift, and we have some pretty good on day shift right now, from my understanding. So, but anytime, the night shift, it's kind of it depends on what fits your lifestyle, I guess you'd say. And so, if you're looking for something, that come join the team.
There's we have a lot of people in the area that work in the mines, and they work that night shift as well. So you can't tell underground whether it's night, day or night anyway.
Sure.
But I mean, there's a lot of those people there, and if you're on the other side of that, your better half is working at the mines or whatever, and you are tired of sitting at home doing nothing. There you go.
Great.
Opportune
We got a spot
time
for
for
you.
you. That's right. And the hospital nursing and actually still working with SBU and also the clinic from Texas County.
East Central.
I can't remember. Yeah, whoever.
We're
Anyway.
working with several schools.
Several schools, exactly. And I know, and they really do a good job of bringing those people in and teaching them and letting them learn.
Yeah.
So an opportunity that hopefully that people take advantage of.
Yep, teaching the future.
Absolutely. All right, very good. All right, real quickly, Dancing with the Salem Stars coming up Saturday night.
Yep,
I didn't
it is
see your
coming
name on it.
I am there. I will be there. I'm not necessarily a dancer, but got two. I guess you can say 2 left feet.
That's all right. As long as you still have 2 left feet, you're still in good shape.
Yep, I'm trying to
You
give
just-
one away.
There you go. And that'll be a lot of fun. 7 o'clock is the time of the event. 6:30 is when the doors open. Tickets are still available.
Yep, that is correct.
You can call the hospital at 729-6626, extension 4005. Talk to Hannah.
Yep.
And tickets, as I mentioned, are available. Tickets are also available at the Chamber of Commerce.
Correct.
I found that out. Marcy had told me that yesterday when I talked to her. So very good. All right, so a lot of stuff going on. Also in old business, state and matching funding. We got some dollars coming our way.
We got a confirmation that didn't bring the actual dollar amount. It's just a little bit over $400,000 that is going to be reimbursed back from the state from what they had given us from the 50-50 match. So that's a good positive.
That's fantastic. It's good when they go that way. Strategic planning update. There's some discussion on that, and
Yep.
that the board wants to figure out the best way to address that.
Yep.
And then also the medical staff bylaw review. That's been postponed to the next meeting. You
Yep.
guys had a special meeting on that, and there's still
And there'll be
some-
more discussion at the next medical staff meeting, and then follow-up will be at the next board meeting.
They have to get together on basically just really one issue.
Yep. Just an
But that one
understanding.
issue slows it all down.
You bet.
But it'll get reached. It'll get reached. My friend, thank you for coming in. I know you guys went. You went into closed session, but I don't think anything got determined. Did
Yeah,
it?
lots of discussion. Always about operations and contracts and all kinds of stuff, but lots of discussion.
Yeah, different things, and it's putting a plan together.
Yep.
It's going to have to work. So we really appreciate you coming in. I know it's a short kind of get together because we have Daryl coming in today. I do appreciate you making the time for
bet.
coming in yesterday, and hope you're going to have a fantastic turnout for the Dancing with the Salem Stars Saturday night.
Always a great event for in our foundation, and they do a great job. I mean, it's a separate from the hospital, but the ultimate is for proceeds to go to the hospital and taking care of our patients.
Foundation does a great job, so
Wonderful.
we hope that
Great
you
supporters.
do get out and support. And I know people. I saw some comments on social media about, well, how can they do that? I said, foundation is not the operations of the hospital. It's a whole different arm of that hospital. You need to know that. So,
Right.
People do need to understand it, but they do help the hospital in a number of different ways.
Correct.
So, please come on out and attend. It'll be a lot of fun. I think we got 8 different dancing teams. I won't even say couples because I know one's doing a solo, and there's one quartet. Yeah, I don't
That'll
know
be
what that's
interesting.
all about. We got updated yesterday, so there's 4 dancers for 1. I have no idea what they're doing.
That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, sure will be. Absolutely. Buddy, I appreciate you coming in and spending
Always
some time with us.
appreciate
Jason Edwards, our interim CEO at Salem Memorial Hospital. You have a fantastic rest of the day. Enjoy it.
I will try.